any reader, okay? I want to go into any reader because some of you may have had a reading with me and you want to do a reading with somebody else. Maybe you're just like, ooh, I want to have a reading from someone else and then I'll work with Rebecca later, or I'll just utilize her courses. Totally okay. There are enough readers out there, like, which I think is really cool. I do want to get into a few things to note when getting a reading, specifically for your spirit guides, that you should be aware of. Reader bias and frequency matter. All right, so it's gonna be, now this is a professional reader. I'm not talking about like going to your friend and being like, hey, can we like do something, or can we like try something? A lot of people do that in my community. I love that for you. That's exactly why I have it. If you're not a professional, if you're not putting this out there, it is okay. It is okay, right? So that's different. But if you are going to a professional reader, it is their responsibility to understand where they read and why they read that way. If they do not understand that for themselves, I hope they're not charging a lot of money. That's all I'm saying. Before I understood that for myself, I charged hardly anything at all because I just have that level of integrity for myself. Some readers, they can read very well, but they don't know how they're getting it. They don't know why they're getting it. They don't know where it's coming from. They're just like, it's right. And I'm just like, that's cool for you. I want more groundedness for me, whether that's me giving the reading or going to somebody else for readings, which, yes, by the way, I still absolutely do. Reader bias. Okay, so the first thing with that, if they're specifically within a pantheon that's really all they believe in, that is going to paint all of their understanding for your guides. Like, for example, if somebody is very dragon connected and they don't understand that creates a bias for them, they might see dragons around everybody. It'd be cool if dragons were around everybody, not in my experience. Certainly if you go up, the pie or tree of who you are, you may have dragon in you somewhere XYZ, elsewhere, etc. Sure, it could get closer to you in a matter of time, but still, I don't see dragons around everybody. I don't see fae around everybody. I don't see aliens around everybody. I don't see like underworld around everybody. I don't see Olympus around everybody. I don't see Norse around everybody. I don't see, you see what I'm saying? Like, I want to go about this as open-minded as possible so that when I perceive somebody's guides, I'm not coming to it with this sort of like, yes, because I work with Hermes, I see Hermes around you. No, sometimes that happens and it's usually pretty funny when it does. But especially if I recognize the energy and I've talked about it publicly to my folks, I check myself so many times just to ensure. Like, I check that person's spirit team and be like, okay, what about this? Do I feel this? Da, 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 before I just, say it, because I don't want people to feel ever that just because I've experienced something from a particular pantheon, god, goddess, etc., that they are too. I want to come across a reading and be like, okay, I feel like this. Sometimes that means me going like, I have not felt this energy before. Let me see if I can describe it. Let me see if I can do a quick web search on it. Totally valid. Absolutely valid. I'd rather give a reader more time to figure out what the heck they are reading rather than them feel like they have to put some pre-established bias on it based upon what they've already experienced rather than actually read what's really there. Other thing, spiritual frequency. So I've gone to some spirit guide readers that they focused on a higher frequency. I'm going to mention Sam on this one. Spirituality with Sam is her handle. I went live with her on a podcast if you want to check that out. She admittedly reads higher frequencies, and I actually got a reading with her through exchange by working with her on her workshop series that she has through either her Patreon or something like that, crowdfunding something or another. She has a workshop series thing, and she had me on because I can read lower frequencies, and I super appreciate that. I've brought in other readers on here before because they specialize in something that I don't specialize as much in, because I don't know how to do everything. I don't want to know how to do everything. I'd much rather utilize other people to be like, okay, how can you help me with this? Because we are meant to work with one another. When she did a spirit guide reading for me, she really went high. So high that she was talking to like my Akashic masters and folks. I don't talk to them every day. I don't. Like, I don't talk to my ancestors every day. I don't talk to my Akashic Masters every day. I'm just like, y'all are in a library somewhere and figuring it out. Like, I want to talk to somebody who understands what's going on down here in my everyday life, etc. So when she talks about her team, it's more like higher frequency stuff. Is there anything wrong with that? Absolutely not. Me, on the other hand, I'm like, what's going on in here? I've also helped other people do that as well when they're very talented in like astral travel or talking with goddesses or, you know, like higher level stuff. I'm just like, hey, that's really great for you. Though I really feel like somebody's trying to help you with the day to day in the here and now. Can I connect you with them? And that's like my position in that. Okay. Here's the thing though. Sam also connected me with a guide who I do regularly work with where, basically it was like 2 weeks before I met with Sam, I got the feeling, I was like, there's going to be a guy that's coming in and I feel like Sam is going to be the one to introduce me. And that was a really cool experience for me because I wanted that experience. I do so much to introduce other people to their guides, and I wanted that experience for myself because for the most part, I met my own guides on my own. And I did it through activities like I just talked about, right? Or I did it through like, I kept getting this picture in my brain. I think I'm going to channel write about it. You know, I got the experience of being introduced to a guide. And that's also because I put that out into the universe. I was like, hey, I want to be introduced to a guide. And then I was, and that was super cool. And that guide is more like the frequency here. It's just at the time, in order to connect with her as a higher frequency reader, he kind of shot high and then he's kind of come in a little bit more. So that also shows his growth as a spirit, etc. I don't think I've talked about him anywhere yet. And that's fine. I might, because he likes the idea of being a skit. So hang tight for that. That being said, it's important to see how your reader reads so that you will understand the kind of reading that you're going to get. Sam is admittedly high. I will use Emily Dexter as an example. She can really work on different frequencies. It's like an everyday thing for her. Some readers primarily work in the lower frequencies. There's nothing wrong with that. Just be prepared though. They might pick up on more like a past loved one guide, quote guide, who maybe hasn't done all the work, rather than like a spirit guide. I've seen some, you know, it's interesting. I've seen some big, you know, mediums on TikTok that don't actually know their spirit guides. They don't even know what they are, but they think their spirit guides are their dead past loved ones, which I'm like, that's really beautiful. Though what's not beautiful is when the past loved one is like still figuring out their situation and they're just like, but what do I do? And the past loved one was like, I am reliving this traumatic moment because I never dealt with it when I was alive and I need to focus on that right now. And how I'm focused on that right now is kind of painting my views on everything else right now. So that's going to be a reader that can be lower. Now, of course, past loved one readers can also shoot high, etc., and shoot low and that kind of thing. But it's just, I keep coming back to this. It is so important to understand the reader bias of a person, and it's so important to understand where that person's speciality is as far as what frequencies they connect with. Other things with readings, it can be a great way to connect with somebody. Maybe that's you sit down with a friend and you don't have to be with them physically, of course. You just have to pretend that you're with them physically, which, because time and space don't matter in spirit, right? It can be a way to connect with them. It can be a way to connect with a reader. You know, if you're like, oh man, I've always wanted to meet them, I will book a reading with them. Yep, I do that. I absolutely do that. It's been really, really cool. But also, like, if you're just starting out and you're like, ooh, I want to see if somebody else can connect with my guides the way that I do, but I would also like to offer the energetic exchange of seeing if I can read their folks and how that works. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Just remember, trust your gut, you know, that kind of thing. Some of you might want to be like, ooh, I've done enough, you know, I'm good for the night or whatever. Just go with what you feel is right and make it fun. Make it fun. As I mentioned, readings can be great sources of cross-validation, whether that's you and a friend, maybe that's you in my community group, Twilight Lanterns Spiritual Study Hall, whenever they're doing that kind of thing, or maybe that's taking a workshop or something like that. Like, there are so many options. You can get a reading with me, hi. But those are the options within my scope of things. You might find your options elsewhere. Totally fine. If you use tools, which yes, I have courses on different tools and that sort of thing. Yeah, you can be like, okay, so I just got this download of information. I want to use my tools and like pull some cards and see if that lines up with what the heck I just got. Totally fine. Totally fine. I think it would be cool too, depending on who you're working with, you know, if they're doing a reading, if you can be like, hey, can I also pull cards while you're doing a reading just for myself to see like if I can get further information? Dude, if somebody did that with me, I would be all for it. Just be sure, you know, you check with whoever you're working with because they might feel weird about it. Whatever, but that's why we're all different and we read differently, and there's nothing wrong with that. The other thing to keep in mind is readings, whether it's you working with yourself, but especially if it's you with working with somebody else, whether that's, you know, cross energetic exchange, whether that's like paying for a reading, whatever, that can be an activation. In fact, I would say a great reading is when you walk away feeling more alive than when you went into it. That is a great reading. Like I've heard some people be like, oh my goodness, after that reading, I totally broke down and fell apart. And I'm just like, but did you have the tools to build yourself up again? And they were just like, no. And I'm like, then how did you feel? Drained. Okay. I'm not saying a great reading has to be like love and light and all that stuff, because y'all know me, I'm not like that. I'm just like, dude, a great reading where you feel activated, you're going to walk away from that and be like, whoa, I can do something. It might not be anything, which I hope y'all believe that you can do anything at some point or another, but you feel like alive, or you feel like, oh shoot, I just, you know, really connect with my guide. I want to do more about that. I've got some tools to do that. This was a great, like, activation happens when we have conversation with one another, when we talk about these things, when we cross-validate these things for one another. So I really encourage you, work with others. You work with yourself, you work with your tools, work with others. Or you work with your guides, yourself, your tools, your others. Yes, 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 yes. Speaking of getting a reading, yes, I do still offer those. Just throwing this out there. I think some people were like, oh man, she's not doing them as much anymore. I don't want to overload her. I appreciate you so much. All the same, I do have openings on my calendar. It's still about 3 months out, which cool. That should give you enough time to try these things, right? I'll be the little due date. I'm not a test. I'm not a quiz. I'm just the sort of like, hey, how'd it go? All the same, that's still on the table, and the hours that I have open for bookings are absolutely still open for bookings. I don't want anybody thinking like, oh yeah, but she doesn't do readings anymore. Yes, I do. I just do them exclusively for Patreons, and that's what I like, and I like being here. So thanks for giving me this platform in order to make them exclusive just for you. That being said,